I quite like working to music, I must admit. In my studio, I like working to music. So I tend to kind of... I don't wear earphones, but I usually let the music kind of just invade around me. Later on in the drawing blocks, we're going to be doing some drawing to sound and stuff like that. So just to kind of get you interested in that kind of thinking. But sometimes it's quite nice to imagine particular music that you like, or you wear particular music that you like being behind you. Okay, right, here we go. I'm going to start like this. As if by magic some music occurs for me to work to. So what I'm doing is really working from the outside first. I'm kind of leaving the space, starting to kind of happen in here. And here's the really motivating bit. Ink, bit of water. Quite pared down. And maybe start to work into it. I wouldn't be too heavy with it though, because if you're too heavy with it, it will really get, it'll clog with the charcoal. So what I would do is I'd keep it fairly light. I would hardly put too much pressure. I wouldn't get great big wadges of ink and splosh it all over the charcoal, because I think it might make it less effective. But you can do things like, if you dip your bigger brush in there, you can really kind of drag like that. It makes quite interesting marks, doesn't it? Like that. Yeah. And then what I would also do is start letting that dry a little bit. If you keep working on it, it'll clog up again. But if you actually just let it dry for a few moments, maybe do another one or work in your sketchbook, yeah, you'll be able to draw back over the top of it. Because if you work directly with the charcoal straight into that, you won't be able to. Yeah, it'll be really difficult. So what you need to do is just to give it a little bit of time, maybe work with some directional marks where you haven't put any kind of sense of the form in there in terms of ink. You might just start to think, well, can I start to work maybe? And I tend to like working with a little bit of a swizzle with like this. This is quite a nice way of drawing. Anybody draw like that? It's quite good fun. And then maybe start to think about the sort of sense of space again. In a way, straight away, you've created something to work on, okay? I would just then maybe let it dry for a bit, because if you keep, as I say, keep working into that, it won't be possible. Just let it dry off, work in your sketch, but think about it. okay, and then maybe go back. Now again, the next thing you can do, and I think it might be quite a nice thing to do also, is to rip another piece of paper like this. Mr. Motivator says, rip paper. That's a bit better. And maybe put in a kind of strut like this, okay, and stick it on. So you can start breaking up the whole form, all right, and then you can draw over it again. I don't know if you've brought glue with you. Anybody got any Pritt stick or any stuff like that? Yeah, in your box? Or share it round? Yeah. So let it dry and maybe put angles in with paper over the top, that kind of stuff, yeah, and then you can work back into it. Don't dismiss some of the things that you were using this morning, like the drawn quick marks, the linear marks, the structural decisions. That stuff can come back into it, all right? But you can also bear in mind what we've talked about initially, that this drawing's made up tonally, isn't it? Yeah, the tone is structuring the form. It's the majority of the drawing. Okay, so sort of think of it in that way. So it's less linearly controlled and brought about, rather and more tonally. Yeah, so it's mass form, mass tone, mass direction. And then when you've got some mass direction there, you can control it, yeah, with some linear structure.